So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the hormone contraceptive called DMPA. This contraceptive is also called Depo provera, and during the duration of my video, I might be using those two names interchangeably, but just know that I'm referring to the same type of hormonal contraceptive. So in South Africa, there are two types of hormonal injection-based contraceptive. So we have Depo, and then we also have Neurostraight. And Neurostraight is an injection that you get every 2 months, whereas with Depo, you get it every 3 months. You get an injection every 3 months. But in this video, I'm just going to be focusing on Depo, because if I focus on both these contraceptives, it might be confusing. But also the video might end up being too long, and ain't nobody got time for that. So I'm just going to be focusing on Depo, or DMPA. So what Depo is that the full name is actually depo-medroxyprogesterone acetate, or in short, it's DMPA. And this is a progesterone-based hormonal contraceptive. So what it means is that the key ingredient in this contraceptive is a synthetic version of the hormone progesterone. It doesn't have estrogen, it's just progesterone. And the way that this contraceptive works is that, well, one, you get it every 3 months, as mentioned. And the way that it prevents pregnancy is by preventing ovulation. You know, ovulation, the release of an egg from an ovary. So it prevents that process from taking place. Number two, it makes the fluid or the mucus in your cervix, it makes it thick and viscous. And obviously by doing that, then that means that it makes it hard for sperm to penetrate, to go through that mucus, because the mucus will just hold on to the sperm and then it won't be able to make it into your uterus and possibly impregnate you. So those are the two main mechanisms that DMPA uses to prevent pregnancy. When it comes to the effectiveness level of this contraceptive, like most hormonal contraceptives, it's quite effective. The effectiveness level ranges from 94% to 99%. But obviously how effective it is will depend on your adherence level. So this means that it will depend on if you're taking it as well as you should be taking it. So if they say every 3 months on this date, you should get the injection, if you take it like that, as it should be taken, then obviously it's highly effective. But then if you deviate from that and you don't take it around the same time every 3 months, then the effectiveness level goes down. This applies to a lot of things. But there are other things that can reduce the effectiveness level of a contraceptive. In some cases, especially with emergency contraceptives or the morning after pill, you find that they say your weight can impact the effectiveness level of the contraceptive. It can actually reduce how effective it is. Other things are drug interactions. So if you're taking certain medications, that can also interact with the contraceptive and then reduce its effectiveness level. So there are a lot of factors that play a role in how effective a hormonal contraceptive like this one, a systemic one, how it works. So yeah, those are things that you should keep in mind when you are deciding on getting on a hormonal contraceptive, because at the end of the day, you might get pregnant when you don't intend to get pregnant. So yeah, that is something that you need to keep in mind. In my videos, I try to be unbiased. I try not to be too biased about the things that I talk about, so that I don't distort the information or what I actually tell you. But I'm human. And when it comes to DMPA, I am biased, guys. I'm a little biased. Maybe not a little, a lot more so, actually. Because there are a lot of things that I find to be problematic about this contraceptive. And I don't understand why, it gets administered. But let me tell you, stick with the video and then I'll explain to you why I'm biased when it comes to this contraceptive. First of all, the thing that I find to be very interesting about this contraceptive, it has to do with where it's mostly used in the world. When you look at the West, when you look at, for instance, European countries, North America, they don't use this contraceptive a lot. But when you come to sub-Saharan Africa, it's used a lot. It's highly predominant. I was able to pull this chart from one of the research papers that I was going through when I was doing a bit of research on this contraceptive. And essentially what you see on this chart is that What they were doing is they were showing contraceptive methods and how they differ by regions, right? So they stratified the contraceptive methods by regions. And if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, if you look at the purple bar, you can see that the injectable method, which is DMPA in this instance, it is more predominant than in any other region in the world. And not only is it more predominant in sub-Saharan Africa only, but when you compare it to other contraceptives, it's still the one that's mostly used in sub-Saharan Africa, which I find to be very, very interesting and problematic. And so I went to another website. I went to Statista. So what Statista is that it's an online statistics portal that provides users with access to a wide range of data from various industries and topics. So I pulled a chart from their website as well. And if you can see again from this chart is that the injection again is the one that's predominantly used in sub-Saharan Africa and not so much so in the West. So I will let you think about that for a while because it's interesting. It's very interesting. I couldn't really find a recent research paper that was showing how this contraceptive is used in South Africa, and particularly like compared to other contraceptives. But there was one study that was saying that essentially approximately 17.7, which is approximately 18% of women that are both, well, married and unmarried women use DMPA, which I think is still a very high statistic. It's a high percentage of women that are using DMPA, especially when we know what we know about DMPA as a contraceptive. Some of the common side effects of these contraceptives is it's weight gain. A lot of people that use DMPA, they tend to gain a lot of weight. So in the first year of using it, typically you'll gain about 2.5 kilograms on average. And in the third year of using it, then you'll gain about 3.7 kilograms of weight, which I think is a lot. That is a lot. But again, obviously, you weigh your options. If you really need to be on a contraceptive, perhaps gaining weight is not such a big deal to you. So it could be worth it. Another negative side effect of this is that it causes a lot of irregular bleeding issues, especially in the first few months of using it, where a lot of women will complain that their periods are irregular and that they get them, maybe this month you get your period and then 3 months later, or for the next 3 months you don't get your period. Or some women will complain that they actually got their period for like 3 weeks straight without a break. I think that is a bit of a big deal, but again, to each their own, right? And like with most hormonal contraceptives, DMPA has also been associated with mood changes, where people will complain that when they are on this contraceptive, usually around that time of the month, their lows are really low, so that is another side effect. Now for the next two side effects, I really think these are, for me, are the biggest ones and they shouldn't be taken lightly. And the first side effect of those two is that this contraceptive has been associated with loss of bone density. What essentially this means is that as you get older, you probably become prone or you become susceptible to bone fractures. So imagine you just fall and then they tell you that, hey, or you fractured your bone. Like, what? That would drive me crazy. What do you mean? A simple fall. That I think that is a big deal, right? And obviously with the loss of bone density also, you're at a risk for osteoporosis. I think it's a big deal and it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. And in addition to this, apparently in 2005, there was a class action lawsuit against this pharmaceutical company, this big pharmaceutical company, I'm not going to name it, that makes DMPA. And essentially the lawsuit, it was coming from the use of DMPA that were accusing the company of having misrepresented the side effects of this contraceptive. That essentially, you didn't tell us that this leads to bone density loss. And now, there was no warning about it and whatnot. And they won that class action lawsuit. And as a result, countries like Canada, for instance, what they did was that they decided to then obviously include this risk, or to make sure that the package insert for DMPA includes or reflects this risk that you will be at a risk of losing your bone density if you take this contraceptive method, So this probably explains why it is not that widely used in those countries. And another really big side effect of this is that DMPA has been strongly associated with a risk of HIV acquisition, or rather, it's a risk of also other STIs. But because in Southern Africa we have an HIV epidemic, so there's a need to sort of like to see if there are other factors that could be contributing to this elevated risk, or that could be contributing to this high prevalence of HIV in this region. So DMPA is one of the contraceptives that has been almost every time it has been shown to be associated with an elevated risk in acquiring HIV. So the way that it apparently does this is in two ways. The first way that it apparently increases your chances of acquiring HIV is that it will dampen or it will inhibit the expression of certain immune cells or immune markers in your genital tract. So your genital tract, obviously, that's your vagina, your vulva, your cervix, and whatnot. So it inhibits certain immune cells in that area. So what this means is that then your immune system is not able to detect if there is a virus there, or if there is a foreign particle, if there's a bacteria there, and it's not able to do anything about it. Because why? Immune cells are not being expressed there that should be expressed there as a result of DMPA. Another way that apparently it increases your chance of acquiring HIV is that it will increase the recruitment of target cells for HIV. So target cells for HIV, for instance, like CD4 T cells and CCR5 cells. So that will make it easy to get HIV, because if you were to have unprotected sexual intercourse with someone who's HIV positive and then somehow they manage to transmit it to you, that means, the HIV target cells are right there ready, and it could easily infect you in that way. So for me, it's one of the reasons why I say I'm highly against the administration of this contraceptive, because for a region or a nation that is already dealing with an HIV epidemic, it's just not worth the risk. Why gamble with people's lives? It doesn't make sense at all. There's no need to do it. So if I was one of the public health professionals sitting on maybe I'm one of the policymakers, I would definitely vote against it, because it's just not worth the risk. And I think that unless there's compelling evidence that emerges and that unequivocally supports the usage of this contraceptive, then why gamble with people's lives? Why administer it? There's no need. So yeah, it's why I said I'm very much biased against the use of DMPA or Depo, because it's often not associated with good things. So now I'm going to discuss the advantages of Depo. Like with most contraceptives, they do have their downsides, but they also have some upsides. And with Depo, the thing about it is that obviously you get the injection every 3 months. So that means you don't have to take it every day. If you're someone who's forgetful, or you're worried you might forget to take it, then rest assured, you don't have to take it every day. Another reason is that it is safe to take while you're breastfeeding. I think they give it to women that are, I think, around 6 weeks postpartum. Then usually they can give it to you, which means it is most likely safe to take when you're breastfeeding. Another good reason about taking Depo is that it doesn't contain the hormone estrogen, because estrogen also presents a lot of other problems of its own. So if you're someone who doesn't want estrogen-based or estrogen-related side effects, then this could be for you. Or if you're someone who just wants to maintain their bodily levels of estrogen, then again, Depo could be for you. You could be the target market. Another very important reason why I think it might be beneficial, especially from a public health or a social perspective, is that it's private and discreet, right? Because you just go and you get your dab, they inject you, and then no one has to know. There's not going to be a pill compartment or pill wrappers. There won't really be evidence of it, that someone could easily realize that you're taking it. And the reason why I think this is one of the good benefits or advantages of taking DMPA or Depo is that there was a study that I was reading about where they were interviewing teenagers, and this one teenage girl was essentially telling the researchers and the investigators of that study that she stopped using the Implanon or the implant. And so when they asked her, but why did you get off the implant, or rather, why didn't you transfer to another contraceptive? She didn't transfer to another contraceptive because she didn't know about other contraceptives. But then her reason for stopping to use the implant is that she said in her community, it made people harass her because apparently in her body it was quite visible, the implant. I think they usually put the implant here. So her reason was that it was visible to the naked eye, and that's probably was because maybe they didn't insert it properly, or I don't know why it was visible. So as a result of it being visible to the naked eye, what the men in her area used to do, they actually would sexually harass her, or they would just call her names and say she sleeps around a lot, because why else would a teenage girl have a contraceptive, you know? So she was glad that she stopped using it. So again, if you're someone perhaps who finds themselves in that situation, or where you need to maybe not let, you want to make sure that other people don't know that you're taking a contraceptive, it could be a viable method for you because it's discreet. No one really will know about it. So yeah, those are some of the advantages of using this contraceptive. The thing with DMPA is that if you're someone who wants to fall pregnant, or if you know that perhaps you're going to want to get pregnant soon, or perhaps maybe a month after you use your contraceptive, it might not be for you because it takes a long time to leave your system. On average, it can take up to 18 months to fully evacuate your system and for you to be able to fall pregnant. So if you're someone that knows how to, I'm trying to get pregnant, or perhaps I want to be on a contraceptive, but then I want to have kids within this year, then DMPA may not be the right contraceptive for you, because depending on your body type, depending on a lot of factors, it might not leave your system as fast as you need it to leave your system for you to be able to fall pregnant as quickly as you'd like. So that is something you need to keep in mind when you are using this particular contraceptive. And like most other contraceptives that I've covered before, it does not protect you from STIs, because this is not a condom. It's just a contraceptive. It just helps you or increase your odds of not falling pregnant. So that's it. But it will not protect you from STIs. If you need protection from STIs, then use the barrier method, use a condom, or better yet, abstain. That is also an option. So yeah. So where can you get DMPA in South Africa? In South Africa, you can get it from government healthcare facilities. It's available, and it's actually readily given to people. Yeah, you can get it from government clinics, you can get it from government hospitals. You can also get it from the private healthcare sector, right? Through your GP, from certain pharmacies. You can get it from, I think, some gynecologists as well administer Depo, provera. In conclusion, as I mentioned, I really try not to give you guys biased information, but yeah, this is one of those ones where I am not for it, and I do not create these videos to promote the use of contraceptives or to say don't use contraceptives, because I understand that sometimes you need to use a contraceptive for whatever reason. But when it comes to DMPA, if you're able to, as much as you can, as best as you can, stay far from it and stay there. Don't come close to it. I just don't think it's a really good method of contraception. The risks for me are not worth it. They outweigh the benefits by a mile. And guys, thank you for getting to the end of my video. I really hope you found it useful. And if there's a loved one of yours or someone else that you know that could find it useful, please share the video with them. And let me know what you think about the use of DMPA. You know, maybe you've had a positive experience using this contraceptive. And yeah, so let me know what you think about it. I think it's a bit of a tricky one, because it's possible the government gives it in huge numbers because maybe it's cheaper to purchase. But yeah, you know, why gamble with people's lives? Or at least if you know, and maybe you're not someone who just wants to blindly follow what's being done out there. You know, now you know through my video that it can be something that is very risky, and you need to keep these things in mind when you are gonna be on this contraceptive, or if you know a loved one that is on it. So guys, as always, my videos are meant to be educational, and I'm not giving you medical advice. If you need medical advice, please speak to a registered healthcare professional about your medical issues, so that they can give you advice that is tailored to your needs, that is tailored to your condition. Thank you so much for getting to the end of my video. I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.